are here. Wonderful. So we call this the Antidote to Modern Advertising, and hopefully I can set the scene and tell you more about that. We did a load of research, so if anyone wants to download our research, the URL on screen now, reflectdigital.co.uk/antidote, that will give you our full research paper, so all the stats that I'm talking about today. I'll put that back up at the end if you've missed it. So trust is at an absolute all-time low. So people's trust in brands faces the biggest dip since the 2008 financial crisis. That was an article by The Drum. Marketing Week Live talking about the same thing. Arrogance around brand purpose making consumers distrust ads. Forrester report, trust at an all-time low. There's so many of these headlines that I could pull out. I guess a quick hands up, who uses an ad blocker in the room? Yeah, quite a lot of you, which always amazes me when I ask this in marketing talks, because we're all marketing people in one way or another, and yet we're choosing to not see marketing. So it's a bit of a worry, isn't it? But you can see the rise. I mean, in the UK, 22%, in Germany, 32%, stats from last year there. So it's making it harder and harder for us as marketers to reach our audience and to grab their attention. And we spoke to 2,000 UK consumers. This data came from last year. And our research confirmed this lack of trust. So 58% of those people that we surveyed said that online ads had little or no influence on their buying behaviour. What's interesting about that is unconsciously it will be having some impact, but the fact that they said it has little or no influence means they're trying not to be marketed to. They don't believe that they can be influenced. Now, the young are still influenced, so actually they're our biggest opportunity. So 53% of 16 to 24-year-olds said that they are influenced by online advertising. And it seems the older we get, the more we distrust ads and the more cynical we are about the ads that we see. So the over 45, 16% trust or believe that online ads influence their behaviour. So consumers are becoming numb to our online tactics, which means that in our minds, brands need to find new ways in that decision journey to kind of have touch points and to reach their customer and to build relationships. Because by building relationships, we believe that will cut through apathy, and that is what will win eventually. So what do I actually mean by gamification? So it's the borrowing of elements of gameplay and it's putting them into a traditionally non-game context. And what we're trying to do is recreate the same levels of attention and engagement that occur in the brain when we're in a state of play. And what we're talking about today is gamification in marketing campaigns. So how we can create small games. These could be things you may even do on social media. It might be separate games that you build. But we're trying to just grab attention and build relationships. Now, our research found that consumers that have already experienced gamification are overwhelmingly open to it. So 93% of them said it's engaging. So when we compare that to 58% of people saying online ads have no influence, and yet when it comes to a game, people think it's engaging. And they also admitted that it influences their behaviour. So 60% of consumers said they would be more likely to buy from a brand if they played a game that they enjoyed with that brand. And that stat rose to 86% for those that had experienced gamification before. So this is huge. This is an awesome opportunity, and it's why we believe gamification is the antidote to consumer apathy. So we've all seen a conversion funnel before. This is my conversion funnel, and how we believe gamification fits into that funnel. So at the top end of the funnel, we've got friendship. So we're starting to try and build a relationship with our potential customer. And gamification is perfect to fit in here because it's a fun tool. It's something enjoyable for people to do. They might find it on social media. They might read a blog about it, an article, etc. It also fits in nicely to that offering advice and support because games can be educational. We can be teaching people something as they're playing a game. They could be learning something about themselves. They could be learning about your product, but we need to be really careful there because as soon as we get too salesy, gamification is not going to work so well. You then have the part of the funnel where we're sealing the deal. Gamification should never be found here. Do not try and gamify that part because you're going to lose people and you lose your chance of sealing that deal. So we skip that part, but then once they're a customer of ours, it's a great way to keep in touch. I mean, how often are we just bombarded with email marketing that's just people trying to sell to us again and it's not very interesting and we're not really engaged? But if a brand that you love sends a game to you that you're interested in because they understand your demographic, then you're much more likely to respond to it. And then the advocacy part, so getting them to tell their friends about you. It's perfect. People are going to share games. People are going to tell their friends. They're going to encourage people to come and play. So it fits perfectly there. So why gamify? So consumers are more emotional than rational, and that's an absolute fact. We all believe that we make logical decisions, but we don't. Every decision we make is emotional, and then we post-rationalize afterwards why we made that decision. So a great quote here. So we live in a world where we're taught from the start that we're thinking creatures that feel. But actually, the truth is that we're feeling creatures that think. So the feeling part comes first. And this really is an untapped opportunity. So out of the 2,000 people that we spoke to, only 31% had experienced gamification before, and only 16% more than once. So that's a huge opportunity. And just remember that stat from earlier, the 86% of people said they'd be more likely to buy from a brand if they enjoyed playing a game. So as we mentioned earlier, young people are a big opportunity when it comes to ads, but it's also the same with gamification. So 91% of our 16 to 24s said they'd be open to playing games with brands. 84% said they'd buy from a brand that they enjoy playing a game with, and 61% said they would keep buying from that brand. So some really high stats there. So anyone here that's kind of working with brands that are targeting the young, this is definitely something you should be thinking about. Not to say for older audiences it's not, but this is kind of the hottest audience. And they also ranked online games as the most memorable branded activity. So they put it ahead of kind of live games and live experiences, so things that they've got out of the house and seen and been a part of. They thought an online game was more memorable. So this is our future customer. Now, you may think stereotypically that men would be more interested in games than women, but actually our research showed different. So 76% of women were open to games and 62% of men. So let me take you back to the start, though. Why am I even here talking to you about gamification? So in August 2017, we launched a game. Now, we're a digital marketing agency. We design and build websites. We do SEO, all those things. And for SEO, one of the things that's really important is building links, as I'm sure lots of you will know. So we thought, I wonder if we can build a game and generate a ton of links to kind of prove this idea that we believe gamification can help for link building, but also it can do all these other things as well. So we came up with the idea of building Find 50 football clubs. So some of you may have seen this, and if you haven't, I may have ruined your next break. You get to have a look on your phone. So this is the URL, so you can go and have a look at it. So it was Find 50 clubs. Now, we're not in the football space in particular. We've worked with a few football clubs, but our team are just a bit passionate. Our designers love football, so that was where the idea came from. And this is a game, is a big scene. So once you're into the game, this is what you see. And it is a pretty crazy scene. And hidden in here is kind of a catchphrase style game of football club names. So for example, at the front, if I can use the, is there a laser beam? There we go. So here we've got a a swimming pool with black water in it, which is Blackpool. So it's kind of say what you see. It's really, some of them are easy, some of them literally you'll be pulling your hair out because it is really quite difficult. But you get addicted. You've got a few and then you just want to keep going because you know there's 50 in there. Some of you will be doing it now and you've probably got some. Whenever I show this in a pitch, I lose the customer. I have to get it off of screen because otherwise they're gone. But yeah, it's really good fun. Definitely come back and play it later. Some of it might be harder around, some of it's like colloquial things from England, so you might struggle a little bit. But actually the US were our best audience on this, which was a bit crazy because it's mainly English football clubs in there. There's a few European ones thrown in. But we built the game and then we planned our outreach. So hopefully we'd be good at that, being an SEO agency. So we did. We got graphics ready. So this was what we sent out to the press. Using their language. So we were going after journalists that were into sport and football. So it's all kicking off soon. And we said that you've impressed the scouts and you've made the Find 50 football club trials. Now it's your time to impress the boss and so on. So this went out to them and in the top corner they had 9 clues that they could try and guess. So we were kind of teasing them and saying they were getting a sneak preview. We sent this out on Twitter, so anyone that's ever tried outreach, trying to find journalists, the best place to find them is on Twitter. They're on Twitter all the time, putting out hashtag journo requests for their own things that they're looking for. So it's a great way to find them and make contact. And again, we're using their language. So warning, it's possibly more addictive than Football Manager. So we're trying to get them interested. We then also used things like Facebook to send messages, we sent emails out, and off the back of that, we had Sport Bible agree that they'd cover it for us on the day that we launched. And they also gave us a quote that we could use on the homepage for people coming on there, which was brilliant, because everyone knows Sport Bible and the Lad Bible series. We then did a BuzzFeed game to help with the launch, so we just took 10 of the clues, put it into a BuzzFeed game and used that as another way to kind of outreach and show people what was happening. And we had a countdown, so on social media we started to build up a countdown. But I guess the really important thing to note here is this was starting really from a standing start. As much as we're lovely people and a lovely agency, we don't have a massive following. You wouldn't expect us to. We're not a big scale brand. So actually this was a standing start of, we've got a few friends and family and clients that will like this. But other than that, trying to reach the masses was brand new for us for this. So these were some of the publications that covered it. So Sport Bible, Planet Football, Who Ate All the Pies. Those 3 sites, still 2 years later, send us traffic every single day without fail because people find the game on there. Betfair became a customer off the back of this. We've since done probably about 7 or 8 games for them in a similar format. And then these were the stats. So these were the stats within the first 5 weeks. So remember, standing start within 5 weeks, 54,000 unique users. I mean, it was huge. We could never have imagined that many people. Over 10% of them were creating accounts. They were giving us their data. And in a time when we were talking about GDPR a lot and customer privacy and data, what a great way to be collecting new data because these people were choosing to opt in. And the reason they were doing that is because we created a game that was quite hard to do, but it was challenging enough that you enjoyed it, and it took time, and therefore people find time quite precious, so they'd want to save their progress and come back later. They'd want to think, oh, I need to get away from this for a minute and come back to it later to be able to see if I can complete it. So by doing that, they were willing to create an account and hand over their data. We reached over 159 countries worldwide. Social was just mad. I'll show you some of the social posts in a moment. And then this was after 2 months, and then the stats to date. So 2 years later, over 140,000 people have been on there, played in 170 countries, over 100 links, huge amount of links, which from an SEO point of view is obviously really powerful. I think within 2 hours of launching it, if you searched football quiz, we ranked like #1 in the UK, or in the top 3 positions for quizzes, because that's how fast Google can work now, and it was so relevant, and because we generated so many links so quickly. What made it so good though? It was the right demographic. Now, football fans, sport fans do love a game. They love a quiz, they love to prove they're the best, they love to prove they know the most, so it was a good demographic to pick. It was addictive, so once you'd got so far, you just wanted to complete it. It was challenging, so there was some really hard ones in there that people were really struggling with, but in the right way, because they were like, I've got to be able to get this. I've done this many, surely I can make it. The length of game, so as I mentioned, that made people want to sign up. We had the right outreach strategy, so we'd really thought about how we're going to get this out there, who are we going to talk to, who will be interested in it. So we weren't just looking for sports journalists, but we were trying to find sports journalists that had covered quizzes before, and we were trying to pique their interest. There was not a whiff of a sales message. Now, that was really easy for us because there was nothing to sell other than actually the game, and we did end up selling games off the back of it. But from a consumer point of view, there wasn't anything to sell. But I think that is just such an important point to remember, that if you're thinking about doing this, trying to make it completely zero sales is important. And we created a community effect, and this was one of the bits that astonished me. So we had a couple of people in our team. We all had the social media accounts set up on our phones for into the evening, thinking, oh, maybe people will be tweeting. And wow, people were tweeting. Like, it was going on to the point that I was like, I'm really going to have to go to bed in a minute, because it was so late, and people were just wanted help. And we'd kind of framed it that you can ask for help, and if you ask for help, you have to follow us, and then we'll give you a clue. But what was amazing was, I'd go to answer someone, and I'd be about to answer, and I'd be like, hold on a minute, I don't know who this person is, but someone else has answered for me. But they'd picked up our style. So they weren't telling the people the answers. They were giving them a clue in the same way that we would have done. So we really had created this community of people that also wanted to help each other. It was amazing and saved us a little bit of work as well. Forums were really good. So football and sports, these people love forums. So normally, if we were doing an SEO talk, I would never mention forums because it feels really spammy and it's quite a dodgy ground to get links from. But actually, it was really natural and it worked, and people were sharing this in the forums. And then the social conversation was just huge. We had wives thanking us that their husband could now go to sleep because he'd completed it. We had my favourite one down here. Where's my laser? There it is. This guy here, Dominic. Of course, I'm thinking of putting it on my CV. I'm so proud of this achievement. Like, people felt so good when they'd done it. But what was crazy as well is we did have a prize. So we said that after like a month of running it, we were going to do a prize draw. So anyone that had completed it, they'd win a £100 JD Sports voucher. And when I contacted the person that won, he was like, I didn't even know there was a prize. Like, they didn't even know. They didn't care about the prize. They were just doing it for the fun, which was awesome. So how do you get it right? So these are the types of games that came out of our survey. So the type that people like. So they want knowledge-based or puzzles. So 24% knowledge-based, 23% puzzle. And then that other 53% was just broken down into lots of smaller types like hand-eye coordination or chance games, like spinning the wheel. Those kind of games get so much less engagement, and you'll end up with your kind of serial game people that are just trying to win prizes and make a career of that. Whereas actually on the knowledge-based and puzzle, where you're making people think, that's the space where you're going to get your really good engagement. This is a game that we've just built, actually, and the reason I put it up here is just because the conversion rate on this at the moment is insane. So we've built this, we're doing some research around journalists and trying to understand what makes them tick. So this is actually like a personality profiling tool. It's built on kind of Myers-Briggs psychology as how the questions are kind of formed. And we're going very targeted, trying to find journalists. And the idea is they can find out what their profile is of 4 different types of profile of journalist. And we've not had huge numbers on here at the moment because we've been really targeted and we're going very much through Twitter and sending it directly. But the conversion rate of someone landing on the first page to actually completing the whole quiz, which probably takes 4 or 5 minutes, is about 60%, which that as a conversion rate is just insane. I was blown away when I saw it. But what's interesting is people love to learn about themselves. So if you can create a game where they're going to find out something about themselves and unlock something, then they're going to do it. So the kind of what's your story as a headline, it pulls them in and it's working. So, and if you do know any journalists, definitely share this with them, because the more data we get, we'll be sharing this probably early next year, trying to really kind of get to the heart of what makes a journalist tick and how we can use that in outreach strategies. So games need to be part of an integrated digital strategy. You can't just go, right, we'll get a game and everything will work. We need to think about how it fits in and why. And so often I've heard people come up to me at conferences and, oh, my boss wants to do a game. And that's normally a telltale sign of let's not do a game straight away, because it's not just because you want to do one. It needs to feel right and it needs to have the right reasons around it. So many brands throw away money on games that fail and they do not deliver. And that's either a product of overselling or just that they didn't really think about it and they didn't think what this was going to mean to the audience and how it was going to slot in and what they could get from it. So let's run through the do's of gamification. So the first thing is to consider your audience. Would they actually play a game? Are they that young audience, because we know that they're more likely, or are they a really engaged audience? Are they kind of the sporting audience where we know they love quizzes? We need to really make sure that it's going to be right for your audience. And also, if you're a brand that covers a huge range of audience types, is it worth looking at this being really specific to one type? Because the more aligned it is to their kind of values and drivers, the more likely they are to actually want to go ahead and play the game. Do competitor research. So the easiest part is hit Google, brand name of your competitor and the word game, and let's see, have they done any games? And if you find a game, try and work out when it was launched, see if you can go back on social media, did they get much chatter around it, what was happening? See, if you know anyone at your competitors and you're on friendly terms, ask them, I saw you did a game a few years ago, what happened? But just try and see what you can find out, because it'd be really interesting to take some learnings of what another brand has done and whether it worked or not, especially if their audience is similar. Conduct research and tests. So with our Find 50 game, we followed that one up with a World Cup one. And the World Cup one is really, really hard. You need to be like a die-hard football fan, because it kind of spans all years of the World Cup, all players from all different countries. So you really need to know your football players. But actually, we had to do a lot of research and testing with that, because you can't make it too hard. If it's unachievable, you definitely will lose the audience. So we had to keep putting that in front of different football fans and saying, does this work? Does this work? Can you actually do it? Because you don't want to launch something that doesn't work. So, and the earlier you can do that research and test before you've committed to all the budget, etc., the better, because you want to make sure that this is going to resonate. You need to think about motivation. What's the motivation? Is it just the love of it, like we had with Find 50, where they didn't even think about the prize, they weren't worried about that? Or do you need something else? Is there a carrot dangled? Is there a discount code? Is there something? Do they need that? So you just need to think about your audience, and that will be really specific to you, your brand, and the type of game you're building. Make it competitive. So is there a way to do leaderboards? Is there a way to put people against each other? People love that. So is there a way to do that? Think about it. Consider achievements, so especially if it's a long game like our game, you need to keep egging them on and telling them this is a good thing. So saying well done, and whether there's prizes along the way. We built email marketing into our game, so if they played the game, signed up, saved their progress, but in 24 hours hadn't come back, they'd get a really encouraging email kind of trying to push them to come back again. So think about things like that to try and keep motivating and making them feel like they're achieving something. Think about how you're going to track the success. What's success going to look like? What are you going to model this on? Is this just an engagement piece? So like Betfair, when we do games for them, it's purely about engagement. They don't even want the data, because in the gambling world, it's all quite complicated. They don't even want the signed up email addresses. It's just purely, we want to put something out that's fun for our audience to keep them bought into us as a brand rather than our competitors. But is it a case that you want to learn something about your audience? There's so much you could build into a game. So for example, if you might be a fashion brand, and you might be wanting to try and identify out of your audience who's more influenced by these kind of modern day influencers and who's more not interested in that and just wants to know what's on trend. Well, you could do some kind of quiz and put all the celebrities in there and who wore what. I wouldn't have a clue. I'd definitely fall into the bucket of I don't know anything about influencers. But then quite quickly, if you tag that up in the right way, you can split your database in half then between those that you're going to send email marketing to that's going to tell you what celebrity's wearing what, and those that aren't, so that actually you're going to resonate more with those people going forward. So it might be things like that that you look to get out of the game. We use Google Tag Manager and tag our games up to cover everything. We try and pick up on wrong answers as well, because that might give you a spin-off PR story. Did you know this many people didn't know the answer to whatever? That can be quite fun as well. Consider influencers. So are there particular influencers in your industry that your audience resonate with? Can you talk to them ahead of creating the game? Find out if they think it's interesting. Would they want to share it? Find out what their thoughts are, because they will be good and helpful if you can get them to share it. And then have multiple campaign goals. Don't just hang your hopes on one thing, because gamification can offer so much. You need to think about all those different things that you might be able to get from it. The link side of it, and the PR, the data, understanding something about your audience, the traffic in general. You might have remarketing tags on there, so you can try and put them into a funnel and move them on. Speak to journalists. So if the link side of it is important and you want coverage, speak to journalists early. Work out how you're going to get the coverage. We were lucky with our football one. We did it at the right time. It was just as the Premiership was about to start, so it fitted in with that. But think about, is there a hook? Do you need to create a hook? Is the game being launched off the back of some data or some research or something you're trying to do? Because if it's purely just a game, you might struggle to get through the noise with journalists on the top tier kind of news sites, if that's what you're looking for. Consider if it's link-worthy. That's really important if links are going to be the aim for you. We also created embeddable versions of our games so that you can put them within blog posts, but we still get the link back. But just think about that. Is it link-worthy? And the types of sites that are going to be valuable to you from a link point of view, will they want to link? Consider all devices. So games are going to be really important on mobile. So make sure it works on mobile. Now, our Fine 50 game does work on mobile. It's not like desktop is a lot easier. There's a huge scene to look at there on a very small screen, but it does work. But do just remember, we need to be thinking mobile first where we can, and making sure that it's going to work. And then consider a series of games. So this is more if you're building something or having something built for you that's completely bespoke, that's going to be a lot of budget potentially and a lot of effort into one game. So could you turn it into a series of games and plan that in from day one, where you can then take the learnings from the first game, put them into the next game, etc., and you can build that up. And actually maybe it is that the customers need to play all 3 games to be in the prize draw for the absolute amazing prize that's going to come at the end, or whatever it may be. But then that just gives you more opportunity to keep learning and to keep doing something with it. And it may even be more than 3 games. It might be just an ongoing thing that you then keep doing and you keep reusing that platform. But also then thinking about the other uses. Do you do events? Could you have the game events? Do you have a reception area where people sit and wait to be seen? Could the game be on an iPad in there? Just think of all the different other uses so that from a budget point of view, you're going to get as much as you can from it. The don'ts. Now, I've covered a few of these already. So this one, hopefully you've already got it, but don't make it sales focused. If anyone didn't get it, that's number one. Don't make it too complicated, so it needs to be achievable. And don't data capture too early. Really important on that one. If the first thing they have to do is give you their data, they're probably going to walk away because people are like, I'm not that interested. Whereas if they can play it first and then it's on their terms that they give you their data, they're going to be so much more likely to do that. So what can you expect to achieve? So data capture is a really important part of it if you build that incorrectly. And the GDPR compliant data that you're allowed to use, that you've got the right privacy policy on, etc. That's a really great way to capture new customers or to capture fresh data on old customers or ensure you've got an up-to-date opt-in from them, etc. Engagement. It's that ability to just have fun with your audience and for them to remember you not just as the brand that sells them things, but I love that brand. They create content that I love, that I'm aligned with. And I think we all have this desire more and more now, like when it comes to who we buy from, etc. The power is so much with us. We've got so much choice. We can find out so much about businesses now. We see so much behind the scenes content from social media, etc. It's so important that we like the brands that we buy from, and people will sometimes pay more because they trust a brand more and they love a brand more. And part of making that happen is by having fun with that audience and building up a relationship. So the engagement part is really good. The increased social following, so trying to, if they want help, make sure they follow you, but also just pushing, follow us. If you love this content, you'll love what else we share, come and follow us. The PR side of it, the links, really, really important. That traffic and what you can do with that traffic, so making sure that you're retargeting. That insight into your audience, so I've already kind of covered that, but thinking how can you be clever? What can you learn about your audience from this? And then a chance to change the narrative. So at the moment we're doing a campaign of games with a railway company over in the UK. And they always have a bad reputation, railway companies. Trains are always late. No one loves their train provider because you normally are just moaning about them, if anything, or just using them and relatively happy. But it's a chance to change that narrative. So they're being able to show their customers something fun and a different side of them. And also they're using it as an educational piece for people to learn about the area that they cover and make them realise that actually, did you know you can get the train to here? But that's not as a sales message. It's just kind of a natural subliminal message that's coming out of it. And then an awesome brand experience for your audience. It is just that fun that they can have. And then it's longevity. Even if you put a prize draw on it and there's a cut-off date, that doesn't mean you have to take the game offline after that. Just make sure you then remove all the marketing around the game, around the prize, sorry, and then just use it for as long as you want to use it. Just keep it there. If it's something that's fun and people enjoy, there's no reason to get rid of it. And then you need to think about what next. So bringing it back to the funnel, thinking about which part of the funnel the game is working for you, or is it covering all 4 areas? And how are you going to funnel them through? So if it really is driving that friendship stage and you're getting new customers, how can you push them through the funnel? And this, I feel like some of the examples today have been maybe more B2C, but there are lots of B2B examples for this as well. Of how you can use it as educational and as training sometimes. That can be quite a fun way. It's going to not get you the links and the coverage necessarily, but we've got a customer that specialise in email security and that type of thing. So what could be seen as quite a dry subject, but we're at the moment building a game for them where we're looking at when you get an email, so on the screen it will pop up with an email in the game and you have to decide quite quickly, do you think it's genuine or a dodgy email? And then it tells you afterwards whether you were right or not and shows you why you were right or wrong. So actually helps you pick up on those things that you might miss that are why so many people click on dodgy links or send money to people they shouldn't send it to, etc. So it's actually really educational, but quite a bit of fun. And then their plan is to actually then create versions of that they can put inside their customers and have little league tables internally and try and gamify it that way as well, make it competitive. So there's always a way, and that may get bigger coverage than just within their customers, because it's educational and it's useful to a much wider audience. So there's so much opportunity. You definitely open your eyes to all different ideas. So you need to think about your email journey planning. If you're getting new data in, what are you going to do with it? If they've come to you from a game and we've not made it salesy, because that was really important, then we do also want them to know who we are. So at the point that you've got their email address, it might be over the next couple of weeks you put them on a welcome program to bring them into your brand and tell them a bit about who you are. And that's perfectly fine, because that's after the game and that's going to help to educate them. And just make sure you remind them that it's because of the game, that's why you've got their data, so they don't go, oh, I don't know why I've got this, and unsubscribe immediately. So try and bring that story through. And also, if they were already on your list, what else can you do you don't want to give them a new welcome journey, but is there a different journey you can put them on if they've not been that engaged previously? So just really thinking about those user journeys. Retargeting, so as they've been to the site, can we show them ads? Is there a reason to show them ads? Do we want to do that? That's definitely something to think about. And then it's just a case of remembering that there's varying levels of success. So I've put up here for what for us were some really big numbers as an unknown brand to reach 140,000 people. But also it could be really good if you reach 1,000 people. That might be all you were looking to do. So it's putting it into your own context of what you're expecting to get. We did this game for Betfair. It was the first one that we did for them, and this was around the Cheltenham horse races. And comparing horse races to football, the audience size, so much smaller. So they actually only had about 3,000 people play this game. But they were really happy with that, because that was 3,000 people that were really engaged, spent however long staring at the screen, trying to come up with the answers, and had their branding in front of them. So that wasn't a failure compared to the levels of traffic we'd seen before. It was just a very different context. Can it go wrong? Yes, it definitely can go wrong. So that's where your planning comes in and making sure you've got multiple kind of things that you're going to hook it onto. But I think the areas where it can go wrong is too niche and not really thinking about your audience properly. That's definitely a warning sign. Making it too hard. Too expensive, spending too much money on it. So getting that balance right. There are games that you can get out there that are off the shelf, but if they're off the shelf, they're going to be less tailored to your audience, so they might be less likely to actually be that engaging for your audience. So we need to just kind of think about where's the balance, and if I am going to spend money and invest money in building a platform for a game, can I then keep reusing it? So just balancing that part. Not enough outreach, so we've had customers that want to do a game with us before and they've done it, but they've only paid for like a day's worth of outreach, and that's probably not enough by the time you've gone and found all the right contacts, because they're going to be different to your normal PR contacts. You're going to be looking for people that specifically have covered games, that kind of thing before, to give a higher likelihood of them of covering it. Having a hook, but there being too much noise. So actually the second game that we did, this one, the 550 World Cup players, we launched that at the time of the World Cup, but obviously there was so much noise. So I think we had about 50,000 people play it, so it was still really big numbers, and again for us that was really big, but there was just so much noise going on. Trying to get the high level of coverage was difficult because every 2 minutes there was something new being posted about the World Cup. Missing your hook due to delays. So I think if you have got a hook and you're committed to, we need to launch with this hook, like, I don't know, there's a movie launching or something and you want it in line with that, or you know there's a hook, then you just need to make sure that you do not miss it, because launching without the hook will have a real difference. We did that for, I haven't put it in here, one of our clients did one that was around movies, and they wanted to launch in time with a movie. Internally, sign off, everything took too long, they missed the hook, and then it did not do very well, and we're now kind of looking at how can we relaunch it in line with something else to really make sure that they get the impact, because it needed that to get the coverage. So then these sides are just around the link builder's call of duty. So if you're looking at it from a link building point of view, what is it that you need to consider? So 1 week to launch, you need to be thinking about finalising your link opportunities. So searching out who those people are and building up that contact list and starting to have conversations. 5 days to launch, sending a sneak peek. So starting that social countdown and trying to build up that drive and that excitement about it. 3 days to launch, we're going to start to follow up. So if we haven't heard anything, let's try and speak to them. How did you get on? Did you have a play with the game? Or whatever it is, trying to build that conversation. 1 day to launch, you really want at least one piece of confirmed, agreed coverage that you know is going to come out at the same time as you're going to put it out to hopefully launch this. Launch day, you're going to send the full press release. So previously you've gone to your best contacts that you were given a sneak peek to. Now it's out for anyone to see. And then you're on the lookout. If you've not done a lot with press releases and journalists before, URL there, we've got a guide that just is how to contact a journalist. One of our team members is an ex-journalist, so she knows what she liked and her colleagues liked, so it's quite a useful guide. Launch day, get social. We want this all over social media, and we want to start building that excitement and being there as well if people are asking questions to answer quickly. 1 day post-launch, you're going to go back to any targets that haven't responded. You're going to start trying to follow up, and maybe you're going to show them, did you see these guys covered it? And look at the engagement. You should definitely, this really suits your audience. Give them the reasons. 2 days post-launch, you might consider forums. So thinking about if forums would be relevant. That's going to depend on your industry and who you're targeting. But forums might be good for you, like it was for us on the football games. 3 days post-launch, you might do a follow-up press release showing some data and some stats, or if there's any funny responses that you can use to create a spin-off story, you might be covering that. So just thinking, how can you keep it going? 4 days post-launch, you might think about the local opportunity. So whether you're a big brand, small brand, there'll be a local community around where you're based. Is there a chance to get links from there? They might not be the big links that you're hoping for, but they're going to still be links that might be useful. 5 days post-launch, so challenge influencers and engaged audiences. Now, this is something we tried, and we didn't actually succeed with 550, but I still think it's a good idea, so I will share it. But we came up with creating little graphics that we shared on Twitter, and we tagged people in it. So we took kind of famous football people like, I don't know, Gary Lineker, or people that are quite prolific on Twitter and use Twitter a lot. And we put the photo out saying, we challenge you to try and get involved. So sadly it didn't work, but I still believe that there is opportunity for that to work as an idea. 6 days post-launch, you're going to check your progress. Now, you're probably going to have done this before then. Definitely don't wait 6 days. You'll be looking at it every day. But things like Google Alerts, you'll have set up Google Alerts, so make sure that you've got those coming through if anyone covers it and you don't know about it. Majestic SEO, really good for looking at your links coming back. Google Analytics to see the traffic sources coming in. And then reflect, tweak and repeat. So this has longevity. Like, don't cut yourselves too short by saying, oh, it's only a week till the prize draw or something. You can put it out there for a month, 2 months. You can give it longevity, and it's got longevity post that as well, if the prize isn't the key part of it. Some of the other games that we've done, so this was the 550 Clubs one. In case you missed it earlier, that's the URL to play it. This one as well, some of the stats I forgot to say earlier. The average time on site for this was 12 minutes staring at a one-page website. But then the 15% of users spent more than 40 minutes staring at that one screen. So it really shows like how engaged people can get and how if they love it, they're not going to leave it. And actually, we didn't brand that at all because branding wasn't important to us. But if your brand messaging was in there, that's 40 minutes staring at your brand. So it really can captivate people. That's the World Cup one, if you wanted to play that one. We've also done a sweets one. So our branding's covered in sweets. So that's quite a fun one if anyone wants to have a go. Are there any questions? I feel like I finished quite quickly then. But any questions, anyone? Oh, definitely there are. I'm going to let you... Thank you. I'm going to let you throw that.
Any questions, anybody? What? Right at the back. Let's give this a go.
Good luck.
Yes!
That was awesome. Yeah. I definitely like it would have gone that way.
Do you have any gamification tools that you could recommend for someone to get started on designing one and hosting it for a potential client?
So we build our own games. So if anyone's interested in a bespoke game, then that's definitely a follow-up conversation. There are tools out there, and there's also things you can just like, if you're really early days and you want to see how your audience interacts, just on social media, playing with quizzes and polls and games that you can do quite easily using like SurveyMonkey or using like Instagram stories and putting quiz polls, that kind of thing over there. That'll start to give you an idea of how engaged your audience is before you start investing money in it. There are definitely gamification platforms out there where you can buy games. I don't know any off the top of my head, but definitely have a search and see. I think just the main thing to think though is making sure it's tailored enough to your audience that you're going to get the engagement that you want to get. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool, thank you. Who's next?
We got someone
oh, it's coming.
Behind you.
Thanks, Becky. That's really interesting. Just from a marketing perspective.
Sorry, can you just hold it up to you?
Yeah. It actually has a microphone in it.
Yeah. Just so it gets on camera, that's all.
Where has this moved the needle for a brand in terms of, overall marketing objectives, in terms of brand recall, in terms of sort of consideration, etc.? Have you got anything like that you can point to at all?
We've got some case studies that I can share, and I can I'll put a tweet out later today or maybe tomorrow on to send to some of those. But I think it all depends what your original drivers were and what it was that you were looking to achieve. So some of it gets harder to really pinpoint if it's around the engagement side of things. Obviously, you can pull all the stats from social. You've got all the stats of how long people have spent on there, but then the likelihood for them to go on and do the next action is quite hard to finalise. So most of our customers have used it purely as the engagement and the link builder side of things. So they haven't then been able to give us the stats on did they get more sales because of it. But you definitely could track that if that was the journey, and actually especially if you then had the email marketing journey planned in afterwards to drive people to go on and make a purchase. So I think it all comes down to what the aim is and then planning that in and making sure you've got the measures in place. But from the stats of asking consumers about it, consumers are ready. They want brands to do this more. They want to have more fun with brands. They don't just want to see salesy content. They love the thought of this. So in that sense, it's a really good thing to do. Cool.
There's questions down here.
Hi, what is the average planning cycle for having the idea or having the need to do a game and from the ideation execution? Is there an average cycle that you can name?
It really varies. So actually customers that come to us that like the Find 50 model, we've made that, like we can turn that around in 3 or 4 weeks now and have it out there. We're planning some games at the moment with some travel providers where we're building from scratch. So then that's then more like a 3-month, 4-month process because we're building from scratch. So it really depends in that sense. And it's when is the hook going to happen? If there's a hook that we're trying to get to make sure we get the coverage, we need to make sure we're aligned to that and in time for that.
And what is the average budget you have to have in mind for that?
It really does vary. So our games probably, to do something like a Find 50, we're looking at kind of £8,000 as a kind of minimum to turn that around as a campaign now, through to, we're quoting up to kind of £30,000 for a game at the moment, but that's for a huge brand worldwide, and the value they'll be able to get from that and the usage and in different countries. So actually it then starts to feel quite cheap actually with the reach that they'll be able to achieve. So it really depends, and that's more kind of quizzy, simple games. These aren't obviously high graphic, building a, I don't know, Super Mario style game or something. That's going to cost a lot more if there's all of that to go into it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool.
Anybody else down here?
Okay, I understand you have quite some variety in your client base.
Yes.
And I was wondering whether you think it would be successful to target an audience of architects and interior designers, because it's quite a specific audience. And I was just wondering, do you have experience with working in the architecture industry, or?
I don't, but I do think it could be a really good audience, because also I think the interesting thing is if you're open to it being quite specific to an audience, but also having a wider appeal, whereby maybe when you data capture, you try and find out, are you definitely who I want to talk to, or was this just for fun? Because actually the audience of people that follow interior design and things like that, I mean, my Instagram is full of interior design pictures because I love looking at it and seeing properties and that kind of thing. I'm then not an architect or an interior designer, but I'm interested in it. So actually if it was some kind of game where I then would also be interested from a reach point of view, you may then be able to get more coverage, etc., but actually out of your 140,000 people that come in, it may only be that 500 were potential customers. But as long as you've then, through your data capture, made sure there's a way to identify who the hot people are and who were just doing it for fun, then I definitely think there'd be something you could do. There's no game jumping to mind immediately, but
I've been
yeah.
thinking about it for the past 20 minutes to find a game, so I was just hoping for some sort of inspiration from you. So,
Yeah. Well,
spot,
I mean,
on
the
the spot.
interior design, definitely. So you could do something fun. You could do quiz type things around whose house do you think this is, kind of thing, or where would you, almost like MTV Cribs style and that kind of thing, or getting people to, I don't know. I'll come back to you. I'm going to find you later.
Thank you.
You've got my mind going now, so
Thank you
definitely
very
let's
much.
swap cards.
Sounds like a lead. There you go.
It
yeah.
does, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Anybody else? Any questions? I had a quick question. I might interrupt. It's sort of like a chicken and egg question, I guess,
Yeah.
Becky. Because obviously you can build a game and then attract attention through
Yeah.
that. So where do you kind of start? Do you look for investment, or do you just build it?
It depends how much it's going to cost and what your budgets are. And I think if budgets were tight, I wouldn't be building a game, because there is an element of risk to it. As with any marketing, it's all a bit risk based, but some of them are a bit more finite. But I suppose it depends also though on what you're doing, because if you're a business where you then go and do lots of events and you know you'll be able to get so much more use out of it, I think
Yes.
it's trying to work out how can we, if budget is really important and we're not a big brand with millions in the bank, how do we make sure if we were going to do this that we're going to get enough out of it and we've got lots of opportunity and to drive insight and to drive that information side of things. So yeah, it's and talking to your audience first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And trying to kind of understand, do we think they'd engage with it? Do we think they'd do
Yeah.
what we want them to do?
So would you almost reverse engineer and do kind of outreach a bit first to then figure
and
it out?
definitely speak to journalists first and say,
Yeah.
we've got this idea, we want to create this thing, do you think you'd cover it? Do you think your audience would be interested? Because if you get a few nods from that, then you know, well, actually, this is looking quite good. And if they're good publications and you know that their reach is relevant to what you're trying to do, then 100%. So I think it's just, so often we hear people come to us that are like, oh, my boss wants a game. And you're like, oh, just no, that's going to
For
be,
him.
that's probably going to be a disaster, because I think they've just heard the term gamification
Yeah.
and got excited about it
Yeah.
and thought, oh, this would be really cool to do.
Yeah.
But actually, it might be quite cool, but it needs to stack up. It needs to kind of fit in with what you're trying to do and fit in with your audience, and not be something that then you're going to think, oh, I wish we hadn't done that.
Yeah.
So,
To serve a purpose.
exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
cool. Any other more questions, guys? All good? Burning questions? No?
Cool.
All good. Thank you so much,
Lovely.
Becky. Give
And
her another round of applause.
thank
That was
you.
a fantastic talk.